very early on, children do begin to show us signs of like poor emotional reciprocity. So as one example is around the age of 6 to 9 months, like within that crucial time period, kids should really be responding to their name consistently. If they aren't, that is definitely a warning sign to have for very close surveillance and to see what's going on.
Welcome to Transforming the Toddler Years, a Core 4 parenting podcast for conscious, cycle-breaking parents ready to turn toddler tantrums into teachable moments. Hi, I'm Cara Tyrrell, a lifetime lover of littles, mom to 2 grown and flown girls, and an early childhood educator. Through the show, I teach you my collaborative parenting methodology for nurturing your little human's mind, body, and spirit. Because how you connect and collaborate in the first 5 years is how you raise happy, healthy kids who grow into the best version of themselves and find true success in school and life. Welcome back, Toddler Tribe. My guest today is Dr. Vladimir Barayev. He is a board-certified pediatrician who has dedicated over a decade to providing personalized, comprehensive care for children and families, but he is particularly focused on supporting those affected by autism and other neurodiverse developmental challenges. And that's why he's here today. He's going to share his 6 pillars of health and how you can use those to support your children, neurotypical and neurodiverse, and navigate those complexities of everyday parenting. He's a really special guest, and I hope you get a ton out of this episode. Dr. Vlad, thank you so much for being here. What a fresh voice you are for parents who are navigating autism, not sure if they're about to navigate autism, or people who just want to do this parenting thing holistically from the beginning.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be on with you.
So that's what we're going to talk about today, right? Your specialty is supporting parents as they navigate the journey of early autism, the diagnosis, and then also just that daily practice of living with perspective that they can see through their child's eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, one thing that I love to emphasize to families is we see a child who wants to play on their own on the autism spectrum that has difficulty relating to their parents or their siblings. And we want to pull them into the family dynamics. We want to pull them into our world, but tell families, rather than trying to use a pulling tactic, we want to push ourselves into their world and try to see their world from their eyes and show them that we understand that they experience the world differently. And it makes, just from that mindset, it makes the experience of parenting a child less stressful. And you understand why certain behaviors are happening.
Yeah. And when we understand why, it's easier to deal with how to move forward 100%. All right. So let's start with this idea. So I'm working with a family right now, and I was just so excited I saw you on my schedule because I was like, ooh, this is going to be so great for me to ask these questions. I'm working with a family right now who has a very sensory-seeking 3.5-year-old. Now, let me caveat this by saying, so did I, right? My now 22-year-old turned 3, and the wheels fell off the bus. I was like, there's a whole new human sitting in front of me, and I don't know who she is. I can't buckle her in a car seat anymore because it hurts her body. She won't wear clothing that has the things on it that she used to wear. She's constantly spinning, and I don't know why. She did not have autism. We went down the road to look at the potential diagnosis. She did not have it. But what she did have was a highly sensory-seeking nature. And we worked with the people we had to in PT and OT to help her realign what was going on in her body. So for parents who are out there listening and they're like, my 2-year-old, my 3-year-old, should I just jump to the conclusion that we're looking at an autism diagnosis? How does all that sensory processing work? And when should they come looking for some answers?
Well, that's an excellent question. The fascinating thing about autism is that there are so many features of it that overlap with normal childhood development. Some families see a child that has like expressive language delays, which is very common. Up to like 20% of kids can have expressive language delays in how many words they say to you. And then the first thought could be, do they have autism? The other overlap is with toe walking. Families see a child that is toe walking, and they say, "Oh, this must be autism." Then we have the question of children who have developmentally appropriate echolalia, repeating sounds that they hear their parents. None of these individual things are enough for a diagnosis of autism. So when we look at the formal criteria that is set forth to see who is and who is not on the autism spectrum, which, by the way, these aren't written in stone. They're just our way of approaching it based on experience. And by our way, I mean the international community that assesses children with autism. It's a way of knowing who would benefit most from an ABA-based approach, right? Because technically speaking, kids who are not on the autism spectrum could still benefit from ABA-based learning. It's just an enhanced version of traditional training, practice, and education. But when we are concerned about and the sensory symptoms that you mentioned as well, when we're concerned about autism, it's about more than that. It's about the combination of two large domains of their behaviors. Number one is their ability to relate to other people and have like reciprocal social interaction. So we think of playing games like peekaboo, playing hide and seek and taking turns, or being able to maintain good eye contact, as well as being able to respond when you call their name. Now, kids who have milder forms of autism, they do generally pretty well in even those areas. That doesn't mean they're not on the autism spectrum automatically either. This gets more complicated. There's no one single thing. It's the overall, the total picture. When you look at a night sky, you don't know where you are just by looking at one star. You have to look at all the constellation of stars around you to get your bearings to know what you're talking about. So we do the same thing with autism. That one domain of reciprocal social interaction is one part of it. And the second part of it is restricted and repetitive behaviors, one of which sensory seeking behaviors is one of those, but there are three other domains of restricted and repetitive behaviors, and you need to have at least two of those four, in addition to all of the social reciprocity challenges that I mentioned previously. So the other three domains within the restrictive and repetitive behaviors that we look at include, insistence on routines and sameness. Like if a child likes to line toys up in a row and you disrupt one of the toys from that line, they can have moderate to extreme levels of agitation because you just interrupted their pattern, their routine. That's one example. The other areas that we look at are stereotypical behaviors of autism. So that including repetitive, both vocal and motor behaviors. So things like out of context, just starting to recite lines from their favorite Disney movie.
Right.
Repeating the last word that they just heard someone state to them. Hand flapping, spinning, doing things that we call self-stimming, which are behaviors that overlap with neurotypical children who are not on the autism spectrum. And then the final domain is, so we talked about their routines, their adaptability to change and their intense focus on things. So having extreme focus on things like dinosaurs and being able to name dinosaurs and give you facts about dinosaurs at a very young age that some archaeologists may not even know those facts is one example of extreme focus on peculiar interests that a child may have. It's difficult to redirect their attention away from that. So it's the combination of all those four domains, two of those four, plus the the social emotional reciprocity challenges that make a diagnosis of autism.
So you just described very clearly how complicated this really is, and that why bringing in a highly trained professional such as yourself is the right answer if you are questioning at all, because all the information is going to be good information. And if the answer is we're not headed down that road, okay, you're going to refer to another space where maybe they can get some of those needs met and grow through them. Quick question. Do you subscribe to the Core 4 Connector? That is our weekly newsletter. Drops into your inbox every Monday at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Just a great way to start the week. Reconnect with the parent, the educator, the nanny, the adult you want to be in your toddler's life. It's easy, quick, and free to sign up. Just use the link in the show notes and you will get all the links that are from the last week's podcasts, just in case they got by you. And you say, oh, that's the one I wanted to listen to. Right. Easy, efficient. That's my goal, is to always provide value for you while keeping your life as simple as possible. Sign up for the Core 4 Connector today. You said two things, and I'd love for you to expand on them. You talked about the spectrum, and we all know there is one. And I'd love for you to share how early parents can expect to get a diagnosis, knowing that they might get a different part of the spectrum that opens up for them as their child grows. Because I know really early ages, it's hard to tap into true assessment because kids are just in such a lightning speed of development.
Absolutely, that's true. I've had several examples of this in my own general pediatrics practice where I was concerned that my own patients who were just coming to see me for general pediatrics, their development seemed to be not going the neurotypical route. And I started doing a closer inspection on them. And over time, you see that, no, this is actually not autism. This is still one of the variants of normal, still just needing a little extra support. So the manifestations of autism can look different at different ages. The youngest that kids come in to see a developmental specialist or for an evaluation can vary depending on how severe their symptoms are. There are some children who have very severe symptoms of autism as young as 12 months of age. And we have tools for assessing kids as young as 12 months old with formal standardized observation instruments. And we can give them a risk score. I think it's a very high risk for autism or very low risk for autism. Even knowing that even if we're pretty certain that they have the symptoms of autism at this age, because of the complexity of how the human brain develops, there are some kids who with ABA therapy may fall out of that risk score and no longer be considered at high risk of autism over the coming years. And other kids who continue on the same trajectory and still having the same challenges and deficits. A lot of the times when we evaluate children very young, like under the age of 2 for autism, the assessment conclusion is like uncertain or equivocal. Maybe on the spectrum, may not be on the spectrum, because there is a degree of subjectivity to come from from the part of the person evaluating the child is having. But very early on, children do begin to show us signs of like poor emotional reciprocity. So, as one example is around the age of 6 to 9 months, like within that crucial time period, kids should really be responding to their name consistently. If they aren't, that is definitely a warning sign to have for very close surveillance and to see what's going on.
Oh, that's incredibly helpful. Wow. Right. And so really what you're saying is that for parents and for the whole family unit, whoever is a primary caregiver, whether it's a child care worker, observation is the key. Just keep observing these kids and taking notes and seeing what you see.
An observation over time is more important than a snapshot at a single point in time. So that gives you a more accurate picture of what's actually happening with the child.
I love that. I just think that as adults, that's our job, whether we are seeking information that might lead to a diagnosis or not. Observing kids gives us these huge clues into who they are, what's really easy for them. And then we are on the other side able to see where their challenges are presenting. Okay, so let's switch gears and get to the other side of the diagnosis.
One thing I wanted to mention before we switch gears,
Sure.
you triggered a very important recommendation that I have for families. If for a lot of new parents, they're unsure if their child how their child is developing socially because they're usually at home, not around other kids. Well, observe them in a play group, observe them in a group of children their age, and see if you notice, because you can pretty much spot a difference in the behaviors of certain children in play groups versus the rest of the children. And if you're noticing that there is a significant challenge of the way that they're interacting, their interest in interacting, have a conversation with your pediatrician. That doesn't mean that we just diagnose anything, but at least have a conversation with your pediatrician saying, I place my child in a social environment with kids their age, and this is what I noticed. And I wanted to talk to you about that. So we can switch gears now.
Thank you. And I'll tag on to yours by saying, I often say to parents, please have a conversation with the preschool teachers. Please have a conversation with your daycare providers and ask them to report back anything that they're seeing in that social space that you don't have mimicked at home. So it is a team. Absolutely. Everybody needs to share their voice. Okay. So we're on the other side of diagnosis. And this is where you really shine, right? Your joy is helping parents move through their own emotional reaction to a diagnosis and then using a holistic approach to kind of reframe what it means now to be a parent of that kiddo. And you have 6 pillars of health that you like to tell people about. I'd love if you could share those with us.
Absolutely. It would be my pleasure. So whether we're discussing a child that is neurotypical or on the autism spectrum, the foundational pillars of human health remain the same in all individuals. And these are important things to keep in mind because we build off of the rest of our lives off of these foundational pillars of health. So let's go through them in no particular order because all 6 are critical and important, and they rely on one another. They are interdependent on each other to stand up and keep our health up. So the first one is our nutrition. Maintaining a whole food plant-based diet is what I strongly recommend to families because our guts are constantly churning and processing the food that we ate. Even if we don't remember what we ate 1 or 2 days ago, it is still impacting us in a variety of ways. The second is physical activity. We are mobile creatures. Our bodies were designed and made to keep in motion and to have a minimum amount of movement throughout our days. I'm not talking about lifting massively heavy weights, but to move our bodies around in ways that are enjoyable and fun for ourselves and our families. The third one is getting appropriate amounts of good quality sleep. So you may be getting a good time in bed for a number of hours of sleep, depending on your age. So children can require anywhere from 16 to 8 hours of sleep at night. So the range is quite vast. But what we do know that is having good quality sleep, that you're not awoken every few minutes at night, that interrupts your ability to go into the restorative deep sleep. Then we have our relationships. Being able to have nurturing and supportive relationships with our friends and our family, and not being in isolation, not relying on social media as a form of our social engagement, but actual human-to-human interaction and contact is very critical for our overall health. Then we have our ability to cope with the stresses and challenges of life. Everyone needs this because everyone is going to have stress and challenge in their life. If you want to meet somebody who has no stress and no problems in their life, then you have to stroll by a graveyard because they have all passed away. If you are alive on this earth, we suffer with both types, the eustress and the distress, the good stress and the bad stress, that some of it is self-imposed based off of our thinking about our past and our future. So in these situations, to help us mitigate with our stress responses, I strongly encourage activities such as yoga and meditation and journaling. And there's many ways to overcome and manage stress, but whatever the best way works for you to continue to cultivate that throughout life. And the last one is environmental exposures. When we learn that certain noise pollution, air quality, water quality, food dyes in our food supply, chemical additives that may or may not be necessary for foods, minimizing exposure to all those types of toxins will including the toxin of being around like toxic people that constantly make you feel lower self-esteem or making you feel that comparitis of wanting to your life to live up to a certain standard that's not realistic. So all those 6 pillars of health, if they're maintained and cultivated over time, will lead to good health. By maintaining, cultivating, I'm thinking of like a garden. So you have plants growing in the garden, but if those plants are not maintained, then weeds will start to grow up in that garden as well. And it's our responsibility to go in and pluck out the weeds from our health and to keep it a beautiful, luxurious garden.
It's about time to start planting seeds around here. I am resonating with that. Yeah. And I mean, we're not going to go down this track. I had a different episode with someone who was all about gut health and like knew all of those microbe things. And at that exact same time, they had just announced the ban on the dyes here in the US. And I was like, okay, we're making progress. These 6, it's what's so unbelievable about intentionally living life is how simple the formula really is, but how challenging and complicated it is to apply with consistency to your daily experience. And as you were talking, I'm thinking when a brand new human comes into the world, parents prioritize their nutrition, their sleep, their movement, right? We're all about the tummy time. We're going to get those muscles moving and do your body weights. And what happens is the parent depletes theirs for the sake of the child. And for a short period of time, that has to happen, right? Because these kids come in completely unable to do anything for themselves. Then when you got to the second half of these pillars, I thought, oh, this is where it gets tricky. Because we're so conditioned after 3, 4, maybe even 5 months of really meeting their needs every single second of the day that they're awake, that when it's time to create opportunities for them to develop some coping skills, we maybe don't let them. When it's time for them to develop relationships with others and go through the struggle of what it's like to interact with someone you're unfamiliar with for the first time, we protect them. So it's those second pieces that for our kids specifically, we need to look at through different lenses and understand, like you said in the beginning of this conversation, why it matters so much. And with kids with autism, it matters even more.
Absolutely. Absolutely. If a child that is developing is not also developing the ability to cope and to problem solve on their own, if someone is constantly coming in and solving problems for them, then that problem-solving muscle of theirs is atrophied. It has never developed. Then there's a moment in time when society forcefully rips our children to put them into schools and the workplace and life. They have no muscle developed to be able to put up with it. And as we see these days, we have a massive pandemic of anxiety and depression. There's not enough downstream, I should say, mental health professionals to support the upstream lack of preventative care and coping skills that should have been developed previously that never were.
Oh, yes, our post-pandemic pandemic is a bit of a challenge. And this is why these conversations matter so much. The expectation that we as humans have that we can go back to the way things were, whatever that journey is for us. Like once we're on the other side of something, we've got to be able to embrace that new sense of normal and create some coping strategies around it. So this is absolutely fantastic. And I know that you have a YouTube channel that is designated just for this purpose, that you go on and you talk and you teach and you bring on other people. And I was so blessed to be on your show. And so please tell everybody about your YouTube channel so that they can go experience it for themselves, share it with their friends and family and their toddler tribes who are coming together to raise great humans. Because this next generation, this is the one we're pouring into.
Absolutely. So my YouTube channel is called Autism Demystified. On the show, as you have so graciously joined us, I have experts that come and talk about particularly childhood development and autism. In particular, we go into explaining what autism is, how the 6 pillars of health relate to autism, studies or treatments that families may have heard of and want more context or information about them, what the current consensus from the scientific community is about different types of therapeutics, how to approach the concept of therapeutics for your family. All of that is available for free for everyone to check out on YouTube.
Amazing. And if you happen to live in the New York City area and you are searching for someone to support you through this journey, then definitely call Dr. Vlad because that's where he happens to be.
Yes, that is where I happen to be. I provide primary concierge medical care as well as autism testing and support for families.
Wonderful. And as a dad yourself, you are going through every phase and stage along the way as well, which just always makes it so much easier and relatable to go to a professional and say, honestly, here's what I'm dealing with and here's how I'm feeling about it. So thank you for your big heart and your beautiful work. We're so grateful that you came to join us today.
Oh, no, thank you. It was my pleasure. I thank you for the work that you are doing, and it's an honor to be on your show.
All right, Toddler Tribe, you know what to do. Until our next episode, stay mindful and proactive as we transform the toddler years.